Viva!
A little jetty.
Giant Viking ship. These were the snacks I brought along for our 2-hour ferry across the Gulf of Finland from Helsinki to Tallinn, the capital of Estonia. This ferry was just like a cruise ship with a massive outdoor deck, shops, a casino, even performers inside. Made the time pass very quickly.
Ja Oonikon Otto 62, 62.
And then we arrived in lovely Estonia. We put our bags down in our hotel in the middle of the old town and went for a wander, and boy was it beautiful. Tallinn has one of the most preserved medieval towns in Europe.
Maybe we look like Southern European.
This is the town hall, and see where this chain is. They used to tie criminals to these poles so the town could mock them. Oh, you didn't cheers me. This was a protest outside the Russian embassy. We saw a lot of pro-Ukraine stuff across the whole of Europe, but particularly in these neighbouring countries. And then back to exploring the beautiful old town with lots of colourful buildings, churches, a lot of Russian history, so Fabergé eggs, babushkas, Russian Orthodox churches. The country was under Soviet rule and is cutting its final ties with Russia since the war in Ukraine broke out. The old town is also surrounded by the old city walls, which you could walk into and under, and you could also climb on top of for a gorgeous view of the city. I mean, a rainbow. It was the perfect welcome to this stunning city. We headed to this big central market and grabbed some fruit and had a bit of a wander. Look at the size of these sunflowers. Estonia is known for its ice creams and had a whole range to try. And we had these delicious triangle pastries stuffed with cheese, meat and dessert. We then wandered into this little creative community that was filled with street art, gallery and warehouse spaces, which was cool to have a wander. Just lying in the park next to this giant foot. We did hang in this park just outside the city walls for a bit, as it was stunning here and such a beautiful day. For dinner, we headed to one of the medieval themed restaurants in town. The waiters and waitresses are all dressed up in traditional medieval attire. There's no lights and the menus are elaborately decorated just like this. This was such a fun experience.
Are you ready? 1, 2, 3.
Viva!
Traditional ales, meads and beers were served in gigantic earthenware jars like this, and these little shots were a traditional medicinal spirit that they had in the town. We also got the mystery dessert option where you had to guess the flavours to get a free drink, which was harder than it seemed. Breakfast the next morning at the hotel was served in this medieval looking dungeon. It was then time for some nature, so we headed out to the Viru Bog, about a 40-minute drive away from Tallinn. This ended up being one of our favourite experiences in the whole trip. You went for a hike through these wetlands, which were just so different to Australia. So still, so flat. The trees were different, the smells were different, but the landscape was gorgeous. This was the narrow wooden trail that you followed through the trees, squeezing past anyone coming the opposite direction. It smells so good here, so fresh but different to Oz. We're going on a bear hunt, we're gonna catch a big one. What a beautiful day. We're not scared. We bussed back to Tallinn and headed to the Soviet Statue Graveyard, a space behind a museum where they've collected all the old Soviet era statues for display. This was quite eerie. Features of Stalin, Lenin, and Soviet propaganda. We then visited the Kik Indikok Museum. Yep, you heard that right. Within the city walls, which took you through all the underground passageways, as well as having medieval artifacts. And we did get to dress up in knight's armour, which was lots of fun. Absolutely gorgeous views of the town from here as well. These are cannonballs stuck in the wall. We went to the absolute best restaurant called Margarita for dinner and shared a delicious pizza, pasta, and some fresh gelato. After some more sporadic flash flooding in the morning, we checked out a war memorabilia store, which we were not allowed to photograph, and then headed back to Old Hansa for a farewell glass of spiced medieval wine before we jumped on our 5-hour bus to Riga in Latvia. The first thing we did in Latvia was head for dinner at Lido. This is a chain buffet restaurant where you can try a bunch of Latvian cuisine. This bar, Black Magic, was the home of Black Balsam, the Riga-made specialty medicinal liquor. You have to try this here. You usually get it with a serving of little chocolates, and we tried it as a shot and in a cocktail. Something I did not know about Riga is it is a bit of a party town and well known in Europe for bucks and stags parties.
Hey. Scandi.
Give me a wave. The Blackheads were a powerful religious order of knights that covered much of the Baltics and Eastern Europe for many centuries. This was their meeting house and headquarters, complete with resplendent ballroom. There's a cat at the cat house.
I've seen a rat in Latvia. Let's call it Latvia.
This is what's called a hill in Latvia. This huge mound. The next day we actually crossed the border into Lithuania to visit the Hill of Crosses. This is a bit of a historical memorial site, a bit of resistance against the war and then the Soviet Union. We also had a bit of a guided tour around some other spots along the Lithuanian-Latvian border. We also headed back to try more black balsam in all the flavours before leaving Riga. This was our last breakfast in Riga the next morning. There is some avotoast under this pile. And then we packed up our beautiful hostel and jumped on another 4-ish hour bus to Vilnius, the capital of Lithuania. Once there, we climbed this little watchtower at the top of a small hill to get a view over the town. It's definitely the newer buildings on one side and the old town on the other side of the river, which cuts through. There is this beautiful parkland at the edge of the city where the river flows through. It's very green and there's lots of trails in the hills. We followed this one up to the Hill of Three Crosses, which is another viewpoint over the old town. Super pretty to see from above. Made it to the Hill of Three Crosses viewpoint over Vilnius. There's a wind chime making beautiful sounds. And this is the view. The sound of the trees. It's beautiful. We found this big amphitheatre on the way down and chilled here for a bit, just taking in the stunning scenery. Back in town, we found this live streaming video portal which connected with Dublin in Ireland, And then we decided to go for a traditional dinner. This place had a queue out the door, so we thought that was a sign it was going to be good. We had a cold beetroot soup and these traditional large dumplings, which were just not it. They were so gelatinous and gluggy. We did not enjoy this. The next morning, we headed to this coffee shop, which I had read somewhere had the best coffee in Vilnius, and it did not disappoint. This coffee was so good, we ended up coming back here again the next day. It was that good. And of course, they did the cortado, which has my heart in Europe. We grabbed some breakfast at a cafe called Holy Donut, and I had these curd pancakes, which were yum but sweet, and Harry had a delicious shakshuka. I then bought an amber bracelet, as the Baltics are one of the largest producers of amber and they sell it absolutely everywhere here. We then wandered through the artist community of Uzupis. You can get a stamp on your passport, as they do call themselves self-governing, and it's a community of creatives, artists. I bought these lovely little stickers, and they even have their own constitution, which has quite a few quirky things written on it. We explored some of the buildings of the old town for a little moment longer before we decided to jump on a train for the 50-minute journey to the waterside village of Trakai. This was one of the best little outings we did on our whole trip, and I highly recommend. The town is full of these wooden, triangular, colourful houses and is situated along a little peninsula with a giant lake and a red-coloured island castle in the middle. The castle is a museum that you can go inside, but it definitely wasn't as impressive as some of the other castle museums we'd seen on the trip. I've had enough of Harry. Been too long together. Definitely the highlight of this town is the gorgeous lake, which you can sail, row and paddle on. We grabbed some traditional pastries which we ate by the ducks, and then jumped on a paddle boat ourselves for a bit of a whirl around the lake. Oh captain, my captain. Race ya! This was honestly so fun, so peaceful, so beautiful. A real highlight of the trip. Hey bud! Hey! We then trained back to Vilnius, where these hot air balloons were hanging over the city as golden hour set in. It was such a beautiful evening that I made us walk about 40 minutes to our next destination. this old prison, which has been turned into an entertainment venue. There were bars, restaurants, and a music trivia was happening with the biggest trivia crowd I've ever seen. As it was an old prison, the bathrooms were in the cells, which was a wee bit eerie. And then we really just soaked up the gorgeous late evening in Lithuania. Everyone was gathered around this river, playing sports, running, chatting, and just enjoying these long summer twilights. Bye, buddy. On our last morning, we went back to that amazing coffee shop for another iced latte and pastries. We visited the sobering Museum of Occupation before heading to the airport for one last Baltic ice cream. Comfy? Mm-hmm. We spent one more night in Copenhagen in a little pod hostel where we went out for a drink and pizza to celebrate a successful holiday. This is the last of the Euro summer vlogs and we had a blast. Thank you so much for watching. As always, more adventures to come.